had a very close friend of mine, one of my fraternity brothers, who, of course, he was an activist, but he lost his life not on activism. He's one of those that go to the gym, he works out, and he was on the West Coast, and so one of a friend of his go to get some Tylenol or some pain medicine, and he came back and he had passed out, and he never regained conscious. I just don't believe that we should be afraid to speak out, because we can lose our lives in car accidents and all other things. But if that voice does not resonate throughout the communities that we serve, then what has been our purpose for being on this earth?
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. So for all those crazy people who never heard of your boy, who ain't tapped in, they don't know what's going on. The country boy from Mississippi is in the building. Give us your name and tell us what you do in a couple of seconds.
Good afternoon. I'm Richard Mattox. I'm the province poll mark for the Eastern Province of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to where it all started for you, down south in Mississippi. What was Mr. Maddox's first love?
Hey, Kenny, man, I'm going to tell you, I had a lot of love. I'm going to tell you, man, social justice issues were my thing as I grew up. I grew up in the 70s. My grandmother and my folks were very involved. They've been involved in the movement. That's what we refer to it in the South. They've been involved in the movement. And I recall one of the first time I got involved, I didn't know I was involved, but my folks were involved in voter registration, NAACP, and all that kind of stuff. And I remember they put a piece of paper in the back of my pocket, folded real neat, told me to run down the street to a neighbor's house. And when I got there, she was going to go into my back pocket, take it out, and I was to go outside in the yard and play with the kids. I was 7 years old. And then when she was done with it, man, she called me back, put it in my pocket, and told me to run home as fast as I could. Think about it. This was in Mississippi. So this was during the high point of activism in the 70s for the civil rights movement. And the thing was, of course, they were monitoring adults. They never thought a kid like me, 7 years old, was that involved or they would take a chance on me being involved in something that was somewhat, it wasn't illegal, but it was somewhat dangerous because they were monitoring most of the adults that were engaged and involved in the movement.
So let me ask you this. Back then, you involved in the movement. You like being an activist and things like that, and NAACP, things of that nature. Was there a sense of fear for you, being as though when you are activist, it kind of shines the spotlight on you, regardless of age?
Hey, Kenny, man, when you 7 years old, you're not afraid of anything. You hear the conversations, but you would hear your folks. And the thing that you wanted to do was at least participate. You saw your folks out there. They were getting phone calls. A microphone was in their faces. And so you just went along for the ride. And then after a while, you grow up and you say, this is kind of cool. People know who you are. I would go places and they would see this young kid. Everybody would be like, oh, we heard you want to be involved in this. And you seem like you might, be a lawyer, be somebody important. And, you start believing that. Your folks tell you did a good job. Other folks telling you did a good job. So the fear factor is not there. What you're hoping is that I'm getting on this big stage at once or twice in my life. And so that's why there was no fear.
Well said, well said. So, in terms of there being no fear, obviously back then in the 70s and things like that, things were a little different than they are now. How was that for you, knowing that, hey, I might receive death threats as a young kid, or maybe some crazy letter from someone who doesn't like you, maybe trying to make a change in the community? How was that for you growing up, knowing that you might receive some unwanted press on yourself as a 7-year-old kid?
Oh yeah, man. You look at it that as you grew up, you began to realize that, hey, I was in some pretty cool stuff. And when you're a kid, that kind of stuff puts you in a position. Now, my parents were my mom, my grandmother, my uncles, and the community. They had a level of fear. We grew up in a system where there was always a boycott. They were always boycotting some store because of some mistreatment of African American, of Black folks. And so you knew what you was doing was pretty important. Your folks knew that it was a challenge because they had been involved. I had an aunt who she was, I'll say this, 1955 was Brown v. versus the Board of Education. That's when legally everything was, Supreme Court said, their ruling said that all schools were to be integrated. Well, 14 years later, it was 1969, I had an aunt, my mother's youngest sister, and she was a couple years younger than my mom. She was a senior in high school. She said she went to school in the fall, but she didn't go to school in the spring because they were boycotting the school. That's when they built all those white academies in the southern states. And so she didn't go back to school that spring semester. They were boycotting the schools. And so, you hear those stories and so it became somewhat exciting. And so the class, they just went on and conferred their diplomas on those students. And that didn't just happen in my little small town in Mississippi. It happened, I realized, later, it happened all across the South, from the Carolinas to Texas and everywhere else. But so it wasn't a lot of fear that you had. It was almost admiration for what was going on. You felt that you wanted to be I felt that I wanted to be a part of it.
Well said, well said. So, in the midst of you wanting to be a part of it, you're in Mississippi. One of the people that had a big impact on Mississippi was the honorable, great Dr. Martin Luther King. How do you feel about Dr. King and his legacy and what he brought to the NAACP and just the nation as a whole in terms of the country, America?
Oh, it was something, man. Of course, by this time, Dr. King had passed, had been killed, had been murdered. And so Dr. King had been murdered. Medgar Evers, who was murdered before Dr. King. So you heard about all of those folks. I think Medgar Evers was murdered about 5 years before Dr. King. And so every household that I went to growing up had a picture of three men: RFK, which was Robert Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King. So those were staple pictures in the homes of. I don't know a home that didn't have that picture. And so you were taught about what they stood for. And so, with me, it became something that I was interested in. I was interested in them, and I wanted to be like Dr. King. I wanted to be somebody that made a difference in all that they had done. And I wanted to carry that legacy. I recall being in seventh grade, Kennedy. I recall being in seventh grade. I was in a class called Occupational Orientation. And my professor, Will Shelton, there was like 5 levels of occupations, and the top one was President of the United States. I was like, that's what I want. That's what I wanted to do, and I believed for a long time that was the journey that I was on. So even when I went off to college, I played the role. I recognized the boxes that need to have been checked. So growing up and going through high school, going to college, that's when I had an opportunity. I went to Mississippi State, which is a PWI. So I had an opportunity to interact with a number of folks, learn from some folks that I had never, a race of people that I had never really been around. I grew up in a pretty much all black town, and the white kids went to these all white academies in the South, and we went to the public schools. And so when I got to college, got to Mississippi State, I got involved in totally pursuing my ambition to be president of the United States. Military was a big part of it. So I joined the reserves. My folks was like, why are you going to college? They didn't really want me to join the reserve. They wanted me to keep going through school. But I knew that was one of the boxes at that time that you had to check. As you might remember, but Bill Clinton was probably the first president that I had studied that had not had any military experience, and he was dogged for not having any. I mean, they found out that he had, found ways to get around being drafted, and he did it and left a trail. But I checked that box. I joined the Army Reserves and so forth and so on. So I always saw a part of me that was going to afford me the opportunity to be involved and be engaged in social justice and in political and policy issues.
Well said. Well said. Okay. Yo, if you are just tuning in, you are tuned in to the Kenny D Show. And I'm your host, Kenny D, who we bring you entrepreneurs, hustlers, and stars. And today we got a hustler in the building, the one and only Richard Mattox. That's right here on the Kenny D Show. So let me ask you this. In terms of being an activist and things like that, one of the activists I would say now of today's time would be, in my opinion, Dr. Umar Johnson. What's your take on him, some of his takes on some of the hot pressing issues in the world with Dr. King, Malcolm X, all this stuff? What's your thoughts on Dr. Umar?
I think he serves a great role and purpose. Very purposeful, addressing those issues that impact our community. I always say to most, especially black men, because we look up and there's been some challenges that we continue to face. This administration is one, and Dr. Umar speaks out on many of those types of issues. I mean, we're facing issues like banning DEI, stereotypes of who black men are. I mean, it's so much that so many challenges that we face that we have to shed those stereotypes. We have to fight. We have to speak up. And I'm supportive of anyone that will use their voice to speak for the masses. And that's what Dr. Umar does.
So I was watching a video the other day with Dr. Umar Johnson. And one of the things he said is he does receive death threats and things of that nature. Do you think because of that, some of the greatest activists out there, they have been killed, gunned down, assassinated, whatever you want to call it, once they do step out there and have their voice be heard? Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, to name a few. Do you think that's why most maybe of our people who could be activists even now, along with Dr. Umar, maybe they just don't do it because they're scared of the backlash?
Yeah, I think some of it's fear, but fear cannot be the driving force of who we are, because I think we owe it to the next generation. We owe it to ourselves to be engaged and to be involved and to use our voice to speak out on issues, to speak out on things that impact us. I mean, one of the things that I've seen and over the course of my career is that I've had friends that have been engaged and been involved, and I had a very close friend this summer, this past summer. I had very close friend of mine, one of my fraternity brothers, who, of course, he was an activist, but he lost his life not on activism. He's one of those that go to the gym, he works out, and he was on the West Coast, and we went to school in Mississippi, both of us did, and he was on the West Coast, and we talked often about issues, social justice issues, Dr. Umar and Dr. King and so many others, Stokely Carmichael, because we were familiar with many of those, but Bo Ricks, my friend and brother, happened to be in the gym. He works out pretty much every day, and he was in the gym and had a headache. And he told the guy, "Man, I'm feeling really bad." He was a professor at University in California, in LA, and so one of the friends of his go to get some Tylenol or some pain medicine, and he came back and he had passed out. And he never regained conscious. Bo Ricks will always be, this brother will always be a part of the lexicon of how activism is so important. And so while he was very engaged, very, very involved, but the one thing that did, he probably received a number of threats. Received a number of threats because he did speak out, but he didn't die as a result of assassination. He died from what was probably natural causes, an aneurysm. And so I just don't believe that we should be afraid to speak out, because we can lose our lives in car accidents and all other things. But if that voice does not resonate throughout the communities that we serve, then what has been our purpose for being on this earth?
Well said, well said, well said. So, in the midst of everything with activism and things like that, some of the world's greatest speakers, what is Richard Mattox who is Richard Mattox top 5 activists of all time?
Top 5. Dr. King would certainly be a part of that. Mahatma Gandhi would be someone. I will always say, we would have to throw Harriet Tubman in there. And we throw her in there because she dared not to do what she was called to do, and that was to assist in helping to free African American. That's 3. The other 2, I would probably, and not to leave anyone out, but Stokely Carmichael was one person that was extremely engaged and involved. And my mentor, Congressman Benny Thompson. I had the pleasure of working with him from as we called Kennedy a little shorty. And when he got elected to Congress, he would tell people that I was one of his first hires in his office when he came to Congress, Congressman from Mississippi. He's also, and he continued to fight for justice in Mississippi. He got elected mayor right out of Tougaloo College at 20 years old. And he got elected in a little small town called Bolton. He had to fight at that time to be seated. He went on, most recently, he served as the January 6th investigative chairman for the insurrection that took place on January 6, 2021. He received all kinds of threats. He was there on January 6th in the House chambers, on the House floor, when the insurrections came through. There's a picture of him prepared for if they came through that door, how he was going to respond. Once he was appointed to chair that committee, he received all kinds of threats. I happened to go over to the Democratic National Committee one evening to drive over, and he was sitting outside on the phone. And I saw him sitting out there, and I was like, I rushed and parked my car, and I got out, and I asked him I say, hey, man, I know there's a lot of threats on your life, and you out here in the open. He was sitting on a seat in front of the Democratic National Committee, and so when I said that to him, he said to me, he said, a life that not worth dying for, it's a life that's not worth living.
Very, very, very powerful indeed. Now, I like your list, but what is up with the list? Malcolm X is not on there. The Honorable Louis Farrakhan is not on your top 5.
I like Malcolm. I mean, like I said, I didn't want to leave anybody off. I mean, I was on the spot. I had to choose. I had to go with my guy who I had the opportunity to work for, Benny Thompson. But all those guys, man. I mean, Malcolm X. I recall reading. I used to read Malcolm X books like crazy. I studied Malcolm. I studied Mahatma Gandhi. Malcolm X is definitely somebody who was more than just a leader. As we can recognize, Kenny, most of these guys, many of those guys lived very short lives compared to where we are today. 33 years old. I think Dr. King was 39, Malcolm X was 33. And I have to also look at Jesus, and he was 33. So those 30s were people who was definitely willing to give their lives for for social justice. And they did just that. And of course, Malcolm X is definitely one. Farrakhan, I will say that I attended the Million Man March. He's more contemporary. Haven't had the pleasure of just meeting him. His work has been, he's done some very good work. He doesn't get the credit or adulation that so many others get. Many of them got them after they had passed. So I went with the ones that had pretty much had lived a life and went on to glory.
Okay. So let me ask you this, because I've always wondered this myself. Barack Obama, in your opinion, obviously he was the first Black president of the United States of America. In your opinion, would you consider Barack Obama somewhat of an activist?
I think the activists in our contemporaries are somewhat different. I mean, their roles, their opportunities have been definitely different from our parents and our foreparents. Barack Obama was a community organizer. So Barack Obama put in the work to organize his community. He continued to, even as President of the United States, Obama for America was an organized movement. His road to success was different. It doesn't make him any less Blacker than any of the others, but his exposure, his opportunities were different. So he had more of what is today considered a mainstream type of activism. The guy went to Occidental College, from there to Columbia and Harvard. So he had some opportunities that were a little bit different. Our generation, if you think about it, I'm part of that generation. Our opportunities were a bit different. He happened to live in a state that was a lot more socially progressive than the state that I lived in. I grew up in Mississippi. Then I lived here in this area. But I think Barack was probably, there are those who will consider him an activist, not in the vein of King or even Jesse Jackson. I mean, his activism was, somewhat different.
Okay. All right. Yo, if you're just tuning in, you're tuned in to the Kenny D Show, and I'm your host, Kenny D, and we are here with the one and only Richard Mattox. That's right, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, right here on the Kenny D Show. So, you are a Kappa. Talk to us about that. How did you, the one and only Richard Mattox, become a Kappa?
Hey, man, I was in school at Mississippi State. I had the opportunity to join one of what I consider the greatest organization on campus. Gave me an opportunity to do a number of things. I'm not going to say I didn't enjoy the fun part of it, but it was also an organization that it gave me the opportunity to organize, to have an organized body of friends and followers. We were influencers, and having the opportunity to influence and being an activist. I mean, I came with a built-in group of folks, and then we also had others that were willing to join in. I mean, the ladies loved us, and so we appreciated that, and we showed deference and appreciative of them joining us in our movement. But that was on the fun side, but also going to a school like Mississippi State, we could build as a political science student, you're going to always find a way to show your leadership skills. And so I had the opportunity with a built-in constituency, a built-in organization, and also bring some folks along with me.
Okay. So, in being a Kappa, I've always heard the horror stories. What does one have to do to get in a fraternity if they're looking, when they're watching the Kenny D Show right now, they want to get in a fraternity? What is something they might have to do that maybe they don't want to do?
Well, one of the things that I became a member of Kappa in 38 years ago. We were a lot more secretive, so people could assign their thoughts on what it took to get in and all that kind of stuff. But what we look for is achievers. We look for those individuals or looking to be successful, to be achieving in every field of human endeavor, whether it's in the science, arts, religion, politics, what have you. I kind of get a little twitch on the thought of what you really was asking.
Okay.
It's an opportunity. I mean, there are some discipline, an opportunity to show discipline to become members of the organization. The organization of the Divine Nine were founded. Most of them were founded in the early parts of the 20th century, and it was founded at a time when our rights were not only were they not respected, but nobody cared anything about our rights. And so many of those organizations, the Divine Nine organizations, were sometimes the educated voices of our communities. All those people you name, you mentioned when we talked about the leaders. You talked about Dr. King, who was a member of the Divine Nine. You talked about we mentioned Jesse Jackson, Louis Farrakhan. Jesse Jackson, a member of an organization. I think he and Louis Farrakhan are members of the same organization. Martin Luther King, a member, and so many of us. John Lewis, member of Divine Nine. Benny Thompson, a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. Hakeem Jeffries. So much of what we did and what we do is that what you see on the front, on the outside, and people ask what it took to get in. But it took those men who had the courage to dare to do those things that showed discipline and showed the membership that you were worthy of acceptance into those organizations. That same way with Kappa Alpha Psi.
So, would it be right to say that most maybe activists have a fraternity background? Would that be correct in saying that?
A significant number of fraternity members. One of the reasons is, as I said before, there's a built-in constituency on a college campus. There's a constituency. That's a brotherhood or a sisterhood who recognize that we'll travel a similar road into membership. And so many of us have served in leadership roles while we're on campus, in our community. As you know, the Divine Nine organizations, we continue to be active and effective throughout our lives for the most part. So most of us, many of the leaders were members of Divine Nine organizations. If you look at that picture of when Dr. King was shot, I often see that picture on the balcony of the Lorraine Hotel, and all four of those brothers that were standing there looking across at where the shot might have come from. All of them were members of Divine Nine organization. I think it was a Sigma, of course, a Kappa and an Alpha and Omega was standing there, and they were pointing across the balcony, looking as if where this bullet might have come from. I don't know whether that was immediately after he was shot or when they went back on the balcony and they all were standing there and saying, this looked like where, he was standing here and he was shot. And so a lot of times you gravitate to those folks who have shared similar struggle, I'll say.
So in the midst of Dr. King being shot, there was a rumor out there that maybe allegedly that Dr. Jesse Jackson might have had something to do with it, or one of his close buddies might have had something to do with it, ultimately setting him up to be assassinated. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think there might be a little validity to that? Obviously, we don't know for sure, but in your opinion, do you think it might not be the truth, but maybe close to the truth? What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, Jesse was a fairly young guy at the time. I think that was in '68. Jesse was probably somewhere in somewhere around his early 20s or what have you, or mid 20s. There's always an attempt to divide our community. And many times we will find people who want to store discord in our community. And so I would definitely look at that and say that's probably one of the worst rumors that could be out there. I think at that particular time, one of the things about that civil rights movement, man, we found a way to come together. Now, our approach might have been different. Dr. King approach and Malcolm X approach was very different, but the goal was the same. And I don't think there was any goal that wanted to annihilate any of our leaders at that time. I mean, Dr. King, man, he was a young man, and was definitely, there was a void for a very long time in when he left. I mean, when he was murdered, our community, not just the Black community, but the progressive community, period. I mean, think about it. He had received the Nobel Peace Prize by the time prior to his demise. I mean, he had been all over the world preaching against the Vietnam War and preaching on behalf of those that were totally left out. In Memphis, he was there for the garbage trucks employees boycott. So it was just I couldn't imagine anybody at that time that were on the trail would even remotely want to see Dr. King killed. Definitely not those that were involved and was the closest to him.
Yo, this is your boy Kenny D. Hey, didn't mean to interrupt your show, but I just wanted to take a quick minute, just to let you guys know. If you want to see more dope interviews like this one, that's right, you want to go on YouTube and go to The Kenny D Show Live, all right? And also, don't forget about our website, thekennydshow.com, all right? We got you. Yo, I'm done talking. Back to the show. So earlier you mentioned that the ladies love you guys in the fraternity. Do you think that the Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, any fraternity or what have you, is it a status symbol when you are in a fraternity?
I think that it comes with some level, some status. It comes with, recognition. If you look at some of the, we're very social media driven society now. Some of the things that, some of the performances of Kappa Alpha Psi, some of the people that you find out, a lot of achievers. Bob Johnson, our owner BET, possibly the first Black Speaker of the House of Representatives, athletes, the Penny Hardaways, and all those are members of Kappa Alpha Psi. So there's a whole lot of prestige and power with being members of all those organizations, and loving us. It's not hard to do.
That's true. Very true indeed. So Kappa Alpha Psi is doing some amazing things with the Black community in terms of bringing in unity. What do you guys feel, or what do you feel like you guys are doing good at now in terms of kind of really rallying us and getting the Black community together?
A couple of things. First, let me just say that I'm out here at Camp Kappa. We each year we bring I'm the province promark for the Eastern Province. There's 12 provinces. I'm out here now. We brought 53 young men out to an enrichment camp out in Haymarket, Virginia. They're sleeping on tents. Man, it's 107 degrees out here. These kids are having the opportunity. There's no cell phones. They couldn't bring any of the electronics. So they're spending time bonding with each other, getting mentorship from many of us. You have lawyers, doctors. We have a judge who does a street law program that they go to a federal courthouse on tomorrow to do a mock trial. These are young Black men, and they're standing there doing that. The other pieces that we're involved in, we have an aviation program. The chapter that I'm a member of, because all of us are a member of a chapter, while I represent the entire province, which is made up of the state of Virginia, the District of Columbia, the state of Maryland, and the Isle of Bermuda. We have an aviation program that I'm also super proud of. This program is teaching our young men the mechanics of aviation, of flying a plane. We had a young man that graduated from the program 2 years ago. He walked on the campus of North Carolina A&T with his pilot license at 18 years old. A year later, he became a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. We have a young lady, one of the top in the program. One of the top students in the program is a female. She turned 17 February 5th, and she gets her pilot license. She's in that program. So our reach is very broad. We're very engaged in our community, and we want to make sure that we're affording opportunities to many of our young folks, both organizing in both social justice, education, scholarships, and that's what the Divine Nine organizations are about. We're about scholarship. We're about service, and our job, our reason, and our role in these organizations should and have always been, according to our founding, to give back to the community. I had a friend who said, "Well, I didn't join a sorority when I was in school because, and I haven't joined since school because, as you know, you can become a member of the Divine Nine organizations after you've graduated college. So that's an extension. But she said, well, if I join an organization, I'm paying to do community service. And so I do it. I want to be able to do it when I feel like doing it and not feeling somewhat obligated. Uh, you know, I would see that a different way. I think it's the price we pay for living on this earth and living in our community. So, but that's our role. Our role is to ensure that we leave no one behind. We make sure that all our folks, and it's not always about going to college for many of the people we serve. It's affording them the opportunity to get a trade, affording them the opportunity to be exposed to different opportunities that are out there, different professions and that are out there.
Well said, well said. So with you guys providing opportunities and people, opportunities to grow with things like that, the lady, she's becoming a pilot, the young guy, he's becoming a pilot, kind of keeping people off of the streets. How impactful is that in really like keeping the Black family infrastructure together?
Yeah, I mean, and that's an awesome question. The relationship between Black men and Black women has evolved significantly over time. It's been shaped by historical, social, and economic factors. I mean, the evolution of the Black relationship. If we look at during slavery, Black families were often forcibly separated, yet many fought to maintain their bonds. After emancipation, marriage became a symbol of freedom and stability. Then we had the Civil Rights era, the fight for racial equality, strengthened partnership as Black men and women work together to uplift our communities. And then the more modern, as we can look out here now, the more modern challenges that we face, economic disparities and shifting gender roles, societal pressures have influenced, relationship dynamics. And I'll say this, truth be told, we look, because of a few high profile African-American athletes, entertainers who marry outside of their races. But many of us continue to marry within our races, which help to build wealth in our community. So we're all about building those relationships, showing the respect. I have two daughters. Like many of us, my boys, when our daughters were born, we began to apologize for anything that we might have done. Not that we've done anything, but we want to apologize because we got daughters out there. We want them to be respected as Black women. We want them to be strong Black women. But a bunch of my friends, man, we have daughters. I all of us want a son. I have two daughters. I can name several of my friends, but we would always say, whatever we have done or might have done, or you might have thought that we did, we apologize.
Oh man, okay. I like that. So let me ask you this: If Richard Mattox, Mr. Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity himself, was the president of the U.S. and you had one day to change the family infrastructure of the Black man and the Black woman, what would you come in and do? What change would you make for one day?
Well, interesting, man, because when we look at our community, how important it is that we unify that community. We began to look at our roles. We look at and have always been told that we're the Black men are the head of the household. I would definitely put us in a position where we will definitely be leading in that arena. But leading doesn't necessarily mean that we discount their opinions and their skill set as well. because it's so important that they too are part of the decision-making process. Our wives are just as smart as we are, but it's so important that Black men step up and take on that role, because there's an aesthetic of that. If there's a Black man in the house, now I was not raised in the house with my father, and my mom, my aunts, my grandmother, there were some strong Black women, and I've been asked questions, Kenny, how did you not come across? And there's some brothers that ask me that question. How did you not come across with feminine characteristics? I said, I do. I'm sensitive. I'm caring about people. I mean, I don't have I mean, you see me, I'm just as roughneck as any brother you want to meet. Those were the men I saw. I saw the men in my community that I wanted to emulate, and the ones that I did. Those women that was in my life, they made it known, impressed on me and my brothers every day that we were men, and there was certain roles. So, I'm the third oldest grandkid in a family, and third oldest grandkid. I was the oldest boy. My grandparents, 23 kids that lived in Mississippi. I was the oldest boy. And I'm gonna tell you, man, when I was 6 years old, I felt like I felt the responsibility of being a man, being in charge. Not that I was, was not taking them serious, but I knew that there was something about me that was different from a female. I mean, my mom could cry. I didn't want, if they were crying, I wasn't about to cry. We do a whole bunch of things. And I'm not a chauvinist. I have to tell people that. But I wanted to make sure that there was a role. They had taught me enough that identified a role for me. And that role, I felt that I could be the man of that house, because my granddad was around, but my granddad was, he was doing his thing. And, as a kid, you overhear conversations that your mom, your grandmother, and all of them have. And so you take them to heart. And I knew what they wanted, what they desired in my grandfather, that, he didn't know. He was one of the funniest guys I know. I love that guy. But he was, he did his thing. And I wanted to make sure that I made my folks proud. And I'm going to tell you, man, I loved the fact that a steady family was so important. I believe a man should be head of the house, but it doesn't take away if you had to be raised by a female. It doesn't make you any less of a man, a person, or a human being. And so if I had to do it, I would just make sure that I would make sure that we show respect and love for both our sisters, our mothers, as well as our brothers. I mean, respect for each other is so important. That would be the thing that I would want to see. And I think those are some things that put us in position, Kenny, to be the type of people that our DNA has designed us to be. I mean, we came through the Middle Passage. We survived the Middle Passage. There's nothing else out there that can stop us.
Okay. So well said, well said, well said. So you mentioned the family, the man should lead and all of that stuff. Nowadays, 2025, marriage has really taken a hit. In your opinion, what do we need to do to bridge the gap so that maybe we can have the man and woman coming back together in holy matrimony as a family, as one unit? What do you think we need to do to get back to families?
That's a very good question. I think respect is number one. I mean, we respect each other for our skills and our abilities. We respect each other. Their roles. Society has changed many of the roles that men, and especially Black men, because Black women, as I said earlier, there was a time when we were put in where we were forced separation. There were forced separation. If you think about Black men from even when there was slavery. I mean, they divided the families then. And so the owner of whatever plantation you lived on, he wanted the strongest man. So the black woman had to be strong. But today we have an opportunity to defy many of those stereotypes. And one, we show respect. Two, we identify the role that we want to play. But the role has to be responsibility. Taking on the responsibility is so important. I mean, the first thing we know that there's going to be relationships. We need to take into account that we respect that girl in college the way we want our mother to be respected. We respect that young lady in our community the way we want our sister respected. We treat her the same way that we want the lady in our family to be treated. And once we do that, we come together, we make kids, we create a family, and we also find a way to communicate. Many times we're quick to not say that we're sorry. You know, there are times when there's a level of miscommunication. I think that's the piece that has the greatest impact on, as you say, the nuclear family, the breakup of the family, the lack of communication. I think once we are willing, as you know, it's definitely as black men, and I'm speaking for black men, to try and say that we're sorry, to try and figure out what is it that I've done that have created the tension, and then own up to it. Own up to the fact that I might have done something, she might have done something, but we show a level of respect, communication, and we show our sensibilities to each other.
Well said, well said. Okay. So today's quick topic of the show is Tyler Perry. He's been in the news, he's been in the tabloids, everything for sexual assault allegedly by one of his employees, cast member, someone he's employed over the years. What's your thoughts on that, with Tyler Perry being essentially getting ready to be sued on sexual harassment charges?
You know, I've heard a little bit about that. There are a lot of disgruntled employees. I don't think anything that happens, for the most part, the first time that we are faced with something, that we respond by going to the courts. I don't think that's the first time that whatever he's accused of, we probably want to look and see, and I'm sure his defense is going to be looking at, is this a pattern of something that has transpired, or is this something that some deal gone wrong? I would hope that the brother has not violated his employees' rights. It's so important that, as an entrepreneur myself, I'm very conscious of making sure that when I'm speaking to my employees, male and female, that I do it with a level of respect. That and you know, we get to the point sometimes we'll crack jokes, and the jokes today are different from the interpretation of what we say today is different from, let's say, 10 years ago. So one, be respectful, and let's hope that in Tyler Perry's defense, that he has not violated the respect of his employees. The man is a billionaire, and a lot of billionaires are going to, a lot of folks want to find a way to get some of that money, and so you have to be very careful of how you approach them. I'm not sure, there's questions on, regarding sexuality or sex or what have you. I just would hope that the brother has a better handle on himself. But most of those cases, as you know, Kenny, they're settled out of court anyway. I mean, so many times they come at you, and it's a payday just to go ahead and settle. Doesn't mean that you're guilty all the time, but the person say, well, shit, you big man, Kennedy. You gotta be careful, brother.
It's true. It's true.
You gotta be careful. I mean, they start counting your money, your coins.
It's true. True. Very, very true indeed. Let me ask this quick question. Why don't you think like some of these guys out here that might like the same sex, Diddy, Tyler Perry, things of that nature, why they don't just come out and say, hey, I like men? Like we will respect it even more. Obviously, it's allegedly, but what's wrong with them coming out and just saying, hey, I like men? What's wrong with that?
Sound like they like it all, man. Sound like they say, I want to try a little bit of all of this.
Okay.
But what we say this 2025. I mean, there's still a generation that. I mean, I always wonder. That's a topic there that is just. I mean, it's a tough one because you don't. And once you get a lot of money, look like, and you can buy almost anything you want. You can bring in you can try a little bit of everything, and I guess it's common nature to do so. I think a level of integrity is so important, and so so many times we see people that my money can dictate anything. I mean, we heard the president of the United States talk about what he called with locker room banter. I can reach and grab anybody, they like that. I see, I follow somewhat loosely P. Diddy's story. I mean, it's just, some of the stuff is just, there's really no excuse for it. In terms of admitting they're coming out and saying what they would like, and, I like, I like same gender people or whatever. I mean, there's still a stigma there. That stigma is out there. And so I'm sure a lot of those celebrities who are, and not just celebrities, but people in general, who know, I don't know if I don't know if you're born, liking a certain thing, or you're conditioned. I know growing up in a little small town in a house with a bunch of women, the first thing they ask you got a girlfriend. True. They never asked my sister. They never asked my sisters. I never heard them ask my sisters that they have boyfriend, but they wanted to make sure, Richard, we hoping you got a girlfriend somewhere. So the pressure of that might be the problem too. I mean, you done force them to like something that they don't really like, but because society says, you should have a boy should have a girlfriend, you go ahead and do that. I mean, then you get off and you find out that there's some other stuff you like as well, and that might be the case, man. I don't know. I'm scared to talk about them guys.
Okay. I understood. So for that young boy out there looking to be the next Richard Mattox, for that young girl out there looking to be the next Richard Mattox, what would you say to them if they wanted to be an activist like yourself?
I guess I'll give 5 tenets to being successful. Advice. One is education is power. Own it. Pursue learning relentlessly. Don't let up. The second one was know your history. Knowing our history helps to shape our future. I mean, we're facing some pretty dire times right now, where history about us is being taken out of the library. Our role as leaders and activists in our community is to ensure that our young people know their history. The other one is build strong communities. Support one another. Get involved locally. Get involved in the local sheriff election, the local city council election. the school board. Those are areas that affect us directly. The fourth one would be know when to lead and know when to listen. Leadership isn't always loud. And I say that a lot of times. I've had the pleasure this past month. This is the month we normally swear. We install our officers in the fraternity all over the country. And so one of the things that I often say in my charge is always leadership isn't always loud. Learn to listen. And then the fifth one is take care of your mental and physical health. Those things are extremely important because society tells Black men it is hard, it is unfeeling, it tells us to be silent, and that I would say that's a lie. We're allowed to feel a certain way, and we take advantage and we recognize that there's nothing wrong with feeling a certain way. We have a program called Are You Okay? And so it's a mental program that we are required to check on each other. You know, because if I call you Kennedy and I say, man, what's up? You're gonna say, oh, everything's cool. But we walk away from that and you probably had the worst day of your life and you don't know where to turn. And so many times that happens, especially with us. But I always say to us, you know, take care of both your mental and your physical health. I like to go to the gym, but I'm not opposed to seeing a therapist. I'm not opposed to sitting on somebody's couch and expressing how I really feel. Now, you know, many times we do it. We don't, most times, you know, we've had a couple of drinks, we'll share that with a brother. But a lot of times we do it best with, you know, with women. A lot of times being able to share that feeling with women. But I think it's so important that we look at that and take care of our mental health. So those 5 things, man, so important. Education is power. Own it. Know your history because it helps to shape our future. Build strong communities. You know, support each other. Get involved. The fourth one was know when to lead and know when to listen. And then the last one was take care of our mental and our physical health.
I like that. So if someone wanted to maybe, I don't know, get some pointers about being an activist or even joining Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity and getting some guidance from you, how do they get in contact with Richard Mattox?
I'll definitely give you my email address. That's Richard at Maddox, Mattox, Woolfolk, WOOLFOLK.com. That's Maddox. That's Richard at MaddoxWoolfolk.com. You know, I give my phone number out sometimes.
Okay. But maybe they can get that when they get the email.
You get that after. Okay. After we've had a couple of conversations.
Okay. All right. So for all those people who've been rocking with you in Mississippi, Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, you being an entrepreneur, activism, doing all these great things for the community, for our sisters and brothers out there, for families. Any final thoughts or shout outs for your fans before we sign off on the Kenny D Show?
Well, first, I would say you are powerful. Your story, your voice, your presence have purpose, and never forget that. The other one is what you like. What is it that you like and you want to do in your life? Be intentional about it. I say being on the Kennedy Show comes on every Wednesday. My thing is join me as I continue to follow Kennedy as he progressed throughout this country, advocating and exposing issues impacting our community.
All right, well said, well said. So it was a good show. Tell everybody who you chilling with.
I'm chilling with Kenny D on the Kenny D Show.
All right, and that concludes our show for this evening. But before I let you go, I'd like to thank all my viewers out there for tuning in. And make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. That's right, you're going to subscribe. And make sure you turn those notifications on so when we upload videos, you are the first to get it. And last but not least, I'd like to thank the one and only Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity. That's right, Mr. Richard Mattox, for blessing us with his presence on the show. All right, see you next time on the Kenny D Show. You don't want to miss it. Holla.